take us live here and we'll just let people know. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi.
We are getting ready to interview the man himself, Chad Nicholas, and he will be joining us here shortly. Yes, author of the new book,
The Animal.
as well as Nightmare and Shade.
I have them all.
Yes, I'm still waiting to get my physical copy of the Animal. I am joined by the ever amazing Ariel from Reading and Whatnot.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you have not checked out her channel, you definitely need to. Make sure you can click on the little @ sign by her name in the title, and that will take you right to her channel.
My channel's where cool people go.
What's that?
I said my channel's where cool people go.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we're super excited to be able to chat with Chad here. We should be able to start here momentarily. He's running slightly behind, but he should be joining us shortly. So
Yes.
So in the meantime, I figured it would be cool if we kind of talk about our Chad journey. How we came to be connected with Chad and everything.
Ooh, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
So my Chad journey started very early on with Nightmare. I saw Allie. She posted about this and did a discussion with him, and I was like, okay, I'm sold. I'm going to read it. So I bought it. It came in the mail, and I read it in, I don't know, like a couple hours between 2 days. Like, it was just so good. I took it to work with me and everything. So when this became a thing in my life, I immediately needed to know more about Shade because I knew he was writing it. I got to beta read Shade, which was amazing. And then he sent me a copy of Shade that's signed, by the way, because he's just that awesome. And then I've also beta read The Animal, and I love my copy of The Animal too. He is by far one of my favorite horror authors, and we were talking earlier where we said that we both think he's the best self-published author we've read.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yeah, he's really amazing. And hi, Bad. How are you?
Hi.
Ariel, if you haven't checked out her channel, she loves horror. And
Oh,
same with
I
you,
definitely
Bad.
will.
If you haven't checked out Ariel, you need to check her out. If you love horror, she's right up your alley. Lots of good scary stories. Hi. So yeah, my first introduction to Chad was you. I think I saw
Oh,
Nightmare featured on your channel, and then I saw a couple of other people talk about it as well, like Lady Jane Reads or Lady Jane Books or something like that, and a few others.
oh, I do remember that because I did that author chat with Chad, and then you messaged me and you're like, "Tell me about this book."
Yes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was my first introduction, and then I read his book, and I think somehow I think he saw my initial review of it maybe, and then asked me if I wanted to like read his next book, get an arc of his next book, Shade, and then he approached me again for The Animal, and I'm like, yes, please, I would love it. and seriously, he's only gotten better. Like
Oh my God, yes.
animal, the Animal I thought was flawless. I did not find anything in The Animal that I did not like.
So when I started reading Nightmare, hey,
Yay!
we're just talking about you behind your back in front of your face.
Right, exactly.
But what I was saying was when I started reading Nightmare, I like the first couple chapters, I was like, this is his first novel, I can tell. And then by the end of it, I was like, wow, what a progression. And then from there, we got Shade, nothing wrong with Shade. We got The Animal, The Animal's pure perfection. Is it weird seeing someone else holding all your books right now?
Kinda. It's cool.
I'm missing one, but I still have to get the third one. But yeah. Yeah, in fact, that review that I submitted on Amazon, Chad, they flagged it as fraud because I had not purchased the book. So I will be remedying that.
Yeah, that's been happening a lot
So
recently.
that they will actually allow my review to be posted.
I was gonna say they didn't do that for mine.
Huh.
I'm gonna have to go check now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Amazon's gotten really weird about just some reviews just don't get posted and just get deleted and stuff. So I don't know, but
There's Lady Jane.
Hey, Lady Jane.
oh, and sorry I was 5 minutes late. Some stuff came up and I was just getting home, so I was rushing to get my computer logged on.
No worries,
Hey,
man.
that's no problem. We've just been chatting about you. That's what we're here for. So
All good stuff. All good stuff. I was just talking to Ariel about how Animal is like how we've definitely seen you progress as a writer. Both of your first books were really excellent, and Animal just blew me away. Like
not just as a writer though, like
Mhm.
as a full-on storyteller. Like
Storytelling, yeah.
you've gone from like I have an idea, let me explain it to you, to I have an idea, let you live it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me let you live my idea. That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to get into some of that. I do have a few questions. I think Ariel might have a few as well, but yeah, Bad's going to check out your books. So you got lots of fans here.
You definitely should. You will not regret it.
Yeah, most definitely. Yes, read these books. Um, so yeah, uh, it's been very impressive to follow your journey. And in case I don't know if you caught the first few minutes, Chad, but Ariel and I were both saying that yeah, you're our favorite self-published writer right
You
now.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, I've read a lot of them over the years, and you not only have had the strongest like arc of just overall storytelling, you have such a way with words, and that's very rare to find in a self-published author that has like maybe one self-published book, but you're cranking them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool to hear. It's always, when you're writing your first book, you always want to eventually get to the point to where people consider you one of their like favorites, and you write like novels that people like. So it's always cool to hear that people like them.
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely love it. And one of the things I'm impressed with is, uh, there's various different subgenres of horror, but you navigate them all so easily. Like you're very versatile within the horror genre. So, um, you know, not everybody can do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I think it comes from I don't just really like one genre of like books or movies or something. Like I didn't even really get super into horror until like 2018, 2019. So it's like more recent. So it's like and like all the books that I have planned out, I don't just like consider myself one type of like horror author. Like I want to write sci-fi. I've got a really cool fantasy series I want to write. So like, I just kind of want to write everything, and it's just been
Sorry.
I've been starting out with the horror novels, and that's the thing. Like I kind of want everything I write to feel different. Like I don't
Oh,
not like
you've succeeded.
yeah,
Yes.
because it's not that I don't want to write things similar. Because like I'd love to write another slasher, but it's the sense of I don't want to just kind of keep writing a different version of the same book. I want to write like Nightmare, which is really like psychological horror based, and then Shade, which is like an action FBI thriller, and then Animal is like a really cool slasher, and then the other books that working on and stuff. Like I want to keep jumping around from genre to genre and like keep making because it's fun to write something like new. Like writing Animal felt different than writing Shade, and Shade felt different than Nightmare. So it's cool to kind of just keep experimenting and try to tweak new genres and also kind of join some together and stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love them so much.
I love it too. Yeah. And from what I've seen so far, I have no doubt you're going to be able to pull off some of those other genres as well. I'm pretty impressed. Um, and I think this is a good question, probably best answered by the author. I mean, I'm sure Ariel and I could give our answers to this question, but uh, if you'd like to go for it, Chad.
Okay. Y'all might do a better job than me because it's always seems to be hard for authors to write summaries of their own stuff. But so The Animal is basically a slasher novel, and the plot revolves around a small town where 27 years ago something came from the forest, attacked and killed 17 people, and there was only one young girl who survived the attack. And then, so for 27 years, no one knew who it did it. Some reports thought they saw a werewolf in the forest. Other reports said it was a crazy guy in a mask. And now, 27 years later, another attack happens and some teenagers get killed. So Riley, the girl who survived the first attack, is now grown up and has kind of spent her life wondering if something would ever happen. So she kind of starts watching over the new kids who are getting targeted. And it's kind of a combination of characters from the past attacks with characters from a new attack. So I kind of tried to do it's like a sequel to a book, even though it's not a sequel to anything. I tried to build a history like this is the second installment. You just didn't see the first one. And I just every once in a while give bits and pieces of what happened the first time.
Are you going to write a prequel now? Because if you want to write a prequel, I will read this because now I need one.
Right.
I don't have any plans for a prequel at the moment. I'd have considered the idea. All of my novels, I try to find out what else I can write because like I like the characters, I want to keep writing. But just like because like Nightmare, I'd love to write like Vincent again, but there's not much I can do with Nightmare. I don't
Yeah.
write a prequel just because all the best parts of a prequel were incorporated into like flashbacks in The Animal. So I don't know if I could do anything unique with it, but I will say I do have. It's not a prequel. I do have one idea that would not be a sequel to Animal in any way, but it's like an offshoot of something. Something within Animal gave me an idea to do something like that would branch off, and I'm working with that idea. It would be very, very.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, whenever that happens, I would be down to read it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually started off as a completely different idea for like it'll be a series of like short stories that will like combine into one overarching story. It started as an idea for something completely different, and then I was like needing something to make it better, and the thing that I was needing happened to already be an Animal, and I was like I could just take that from Animal, plug it in here, and it'd work as like it'd make this new author not new author. I saw the comment that said author and author got in my head. It'd make the new story work. So I will write that at some point, hopefully within the next couple years. But
We will be waiting with bated breath. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Um, Bab wants to know: do you write horror novellas?
I haven't written any novellas yet. Animal actually has a I took the first chapter of Animal and released it as a short story called "The Animal Party at Kelly's." And it's got the cover for it is actually the original cover that they made for Animal. So I sent in
Yeah.
my idea and sketches, and the cover they sent back I really liked, but it wasn't like the cover because this cover is really similar to like what was in my head, and the one they had for Party at Kelly's I really liked, but it wasn't this. So, but I went ahead and I kept that cover because I knew I would use it eventually, and then when I decided to write the short story, I used it for it. But yeah, so it's just it's a short story. It's like 25 pages, and it's just the first chapter of Animal. But it's I think it's 99 cents at the moment if you wanted to read it. But I have
Amazon.
yeah, but I haven't written any novellas yet. I don't have any direct plans to. I don't really plan out the length of the books that I write. I just have an idea and see how Because at one point I thought Animal was going to be like my shortest novel, and ended up being significantly
I
longer.
was gonna say, like, when this came in the mail and I saw the thickums that it was, I gasped. I already read it twice. So it was like I had already read it, so I kind of knew it was gonna be a long book, but like I was not expecting this. This is not what thought I was getting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely because I remember when it first came in, because I have all of them. I brought them just in case. But like, yeah, compared to like, it's basically Nightmare and Shade pretty much.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Nightmare is the smallest.
Yeah, I think Nightmare
I'm gonna
was,
stack it. Hold on.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say in response to Bad's question, even though they're not novellas, Nightmare and Shade are both really good short books to get you into Chad's writing. So,
Let's see.
and
Nightmare
they're easy
is
reads, they're fast paced, so
272.
and plenty of twists and turns.
272.
So I'm thinking that number's coming to me for some reason.
269, not including the acknowledgments.
I was close.
And Shade is. I always forget that you do that little author thing at the back.
Oh, yeah.
Shade is 283.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's pretty close.
Close.
Yeah, both really good short books. Yeah, Lady Jane Loves Nightmare. Yeah, so did I. Nightmare was amazing, and like, man, I tell you what, Chad, the way you do your twists and turns,
Plot twist master.
yes,
Okay.
there is never a moment where I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt I've figured it out. So, yeah, the twists and turns alone are totally worth the time spent in reading your books. And
Yeah.
then,
I started calling him the plot twist master, like from the second I finished Nightmare, and I told him that, and now every time I read his book in my review, the first, like, I always say plot twist master somewhere in it because it's true.
Yeah, that's always it's actually when I started out writing, because I've always loved plot twists in movies and stuff. If a movie has a plot twist, like, I always see if I can figure it out first, and I like keep a track in my head of how many I correctly guess and stuff. So I always knew that I really wanted to like be good at plot twists, and that's to me was the thing that first like attracted me to writing. Like the concept of Nightmare, I had the idea for. I was like, that'd make a really cool plot twist at the end of a book, and then I was like, well, what would I need to like? It's weird to do it without spoilers. I was like, what would I need to make that work?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to do this, and then I just kind of worked backwards. But even it's another thing. I don't plan on having a twist in every single novel, although most of the books I do plan to write do have them. Like originally, Animal, because Nightmare and Shade, I had the idea for the twist first. Animal, I actually just had an idea for the concept first, and originally I didn't think there was going to be any type of twist. And then once I started building a mystery around the possibility of the new animal and the identity, I was like, well, I need a plot twist here if I'm having a mystery. So I went through a bunch of different like options, and then I also in one day was just saying, I was like, oh, I could do that. And then it just clicked, and then I just started writing. I was like, oh yeah, everything makes sense.
mm-hmm.
I love
that. Yeah. Bad asks if you have a place like a room, hotel, woods. I know in the Animal the forest figures pretty heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Animal, the forest was the main like at location, I guess, an atmosphere. Because a lot of the scenes are in the town, but even when it's in the town, I'm constantly giving descriptions of the forest, the trees, all of that, and then I made sure like certain scenes. Especially, I really held off on having too many slasher scenes in the forest early on, because in the first chapter, there's one attack that's slightly in the forest, but then after that, it's like school, gym, house that's connected to the forest, but mostly in the house. And I kind of did it that way. It like saves it, so then by the end, you haven't seen as many, and then when they start to trickle in, it feels more like something's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have that sense of foreboding that something's going to get you while you're reading it.
Yeah.
100%.
And then Shade didn't really have a single location. It was more just a series of like crime scenes and stuff.
Mhm.
And then
The
Night.
prison. That's the location
Oh
that
yeah,
sticks in my mind.
I did
Mainly because
like.
when I read that, I was literally like just going, I was like, I was reading it so fast because I was so into what was happening. And then I was like, wait. And I went back and I reread it again because I was like, I need to make sure that I got it all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've always loved the prison setting for like serial killer movies and stuff like that, where like the villain's locked up, but they're still like. I just love the prison atmosphere, especially with like Arkham Asylum and stuff.
Mhm.
So when I had the opportunity to have a scene set in a prison, I was like, I want this to feel like really creepy and like really. It alternates between like creepy scene and then action packed and stuff. So I really wanted that location to feel good. And then in Nightmare, there's really no central location, but to me, it was always the cemetery because the prologue opens in a cemetery, and then technically not the final scene, but the last major scene is in a cemetery, and that kind of felt like its primary location.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent.
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Um, so what was it? What was it that inspired the animal, or what were some of the major influences for the animal?
It was actually interesting because I'd had an idea for be a little vague, so it doesn't really spoil too much. But I had an idea for like a novel where it's like an older generation of like serial killers versus like a younger generation. And I tried some like ideas with that, played around in my head, but I could never really make it work because I was like, there's no way for them to really like. They don't really kill each other. It's like there's no way to like make this work with an ending. And then when I started getting more into like horror novels and slashers and stuff, I watched Halloween, I watched Scream. Those are probably my two favorite slashers. The Scream franchise is really consistent. Like every Scream movie is fantastic. But I started watching a bunch of those. I was like, I really like Michael Myers, really like Ghostbusters. Like it'd be so cool if I could write my own slasher and like have my own character. And I was like, but I didn't think it would work as well in a novel because like Halloween is mostly just like it's the appearance, it's the music, and it's that type of stuff. And then one night, I remember that old idea that I'd had to do like an older generation of serial killer versus a younger generation. And I was like, if I did that and just made it slashers instead of like serial killers, because technically they are, but they're different. I was like, that suddenly gives it a way for me to make it work. And then that night, I was like, well, I'd have the attacks that many years ago, and then something's happening now, and it's the question of is it the original killer or is it a new generation? And then I had that in. I really liked it for a while, but I was having trouble figuring out what the actual slasher was going to be because I was like trying to come up with like a concept and a look. And then one day when I was breaking it down, I was like, the original slasher, I don't want it to feel like, I almost want it to feel like an old, like Universal Classics monster, whereas
Mhm.
like the newer generation is more, I'd consider like evil, like they're doing, the new killer's doing it for like cruelty, whereas the original one was more like Frankenstein or the Wolfman or something like that, where it's more just instinct. And when I had that concept, I was like, would kind of basically be like an animal where it just hunts and kills. And then that's when it clicked, and I was like, I could kind of give this a werewolf theme and like set it up where maybe it's supernatural, maybe it isn't. But that idea gave me the concept of this is the look and the name of the slasher, it's the animal. And then it also gave me the entire personality to distinguish what the original animal actually was. Because like
Nice.
modern slashers like Scream, they talk, they do a lot of that stuff, and that's really good. But then you have the originals like an actual werewolf or Michael Myers, where it's just silent, they kill things, and that's kind of how they operate. And I wanted that distinction within some of the scenes in this novel.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really good, and I'm glad you brought up the part about having it kind of be this question of is it supernatural or isn't it? Because I was definitely questioning that at different points. I'm like, okay, is this like, is this really like some supernatural entity, like an actual werewolf, or is it something different, like a guy in a mask? And then I just like I literally could not decide up until close to the end of the book, and I'm like, wow, way to keep me guessing.
I had the exact same experience because for a while I was like, this is some crazy half human, half werewolf thing in the woods somewhere. And then I was like, maybe it was, maybe this is a copycat, maybe this is a person. But I can tell you the first time I read it, and when we got to the climax of everything and you kind of find everything out, because I read it on my phone, I had to put it down and walk away before I continued because it was just, I was not expecting that to the degree of like, I was getting like kind of hyped up anxiety about what was going to happen next. So I was just like, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to go get a glass of water. I'll be back. Because it was just, the twist was just out of nowhere for me. I would have never guessed it in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a good guesser typically, but I'm never a good guesser with your stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love your writing so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm
One of the things.
not sure which twist you're talking about because there's kind of two. Is it related to the original animal or
it's related to that twist was related to the original animal.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wasn't 100% sure.
The twist before that one, I didn't guess that one either, but I wasn't as shocked.
Yeah, same. One of the things that kept me guessing about like whether or not it was supernatural or not was the feral wolf pack, especially the lead wolf.
Oh my God, yes.
Because wolves know their own, right? So I was thinking, okay, is this really an actual like lifelike animal that we're dealing with? Because wolves know their own and they protect their own, that kind of thing. And I'm like, whoa, this is wild.
I actually had a question that I wrote down, but I don't know how spoilery it's going to be. So since you talked about the wolf pack, I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Did you add the wolf pack in later on, or was that something you had planned from the gate?
The wolf pack referencing the like actual pack of wolves in the forest.
Yeah.
That was so once I got the idea to make it like animal themed, I really like wolves, so I immediately was like, yeah, wolves, and went through all that. And then I started playing with concepts for a specific character, and I was like, what will this character be doing? And at one point I knew it was going to be wolf centric, so I knew I wanted to include actual wolves somewhere in the story. And I tried to include them in a bunch of different ways and have like a bunch of different characters see them. There were a couple scenes that the one specifically where the wolves are afraid of someone. That was a scene that I put in there because there's one character in the book that it takes a long time to actually like see. You keep hearing things about them, but they don't show up for a while. And that was one of the things where I wanted to set up the fact that when this does come, even the wolves are scared of it. So I had the wolf pack in early. What I ended up doing with the wolf pack in the final sequence of the novel, that was actually one of the latest additions. There was one character.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm really particular about how I kill characters. I always want them to die in a very specific, especially like in a slasher. I wanted all the characters, especially the ones that you spend time with, if they do die, it dies in some way that matches their character. And probably the last main character that dies, I was going over different ways. I was like, they were the only one of the like this group that I couldn't figure out. I was like, I have everyone else. I was like, this needs to be better, but I can't think of something. And then I remember that wolf pack, and I was like, I could do something with that. And then I ended up really liking how that turned out because I already had the wolf pack in the story, and that was just the way to just use them that felt natural.
I will say that you have such a way of murdering people when you write.
That's so
I guess
true.
I had to add the when you write so nobody thinks you're a serial killer. But um, you just you are one of the you. I love gore in my books. Like I love reading about gore. Um, you write some of the most descriptive, gory scenes that I've ever read in any other novel, from any other author, in any other novel. And I want to know what your process is on that.
That's actually funny because I'm not the biggest fan of gore. I like it in movies, but I also feel like it can very easily get overdone, where you're just essentially watching something that doesn't, or reading a novel that doesn't have a lot of like else to it, and the gore is just there for the sake of, hey, this is gore, so it's scary. I
Oh yeah, but you balance it. You balance it so well.
Yeah, and that's like, because I don't, adding gore is never my first instinct. I don't just do it to do it, because personally, like, it's not. I like writing horror scenes. I do like writing death scenes, but I don't like the like disgusting aspect as much. So it's like there are certain aspects, like there's, especially in the final sequence, like it's kind of spoilery, but one character gets their arm ripped off. That is something that I wouldn't just include, but I was like, in this specific scenario, it works for this character, and it works to establish a difference between previous killings and this killing. So
One hell of a scene, by the way. One hell of a scene.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
I was literally like, oh, yeah, it was great.
and that's like, I try to use, and also for like, I think this is the second chapter, so it's not really spoilery. There's a very like vivid description of what a corpse looks like, and normally I wouldn't, because a lot of times I'll like describe something, because even the torn off arm, I didn't really describe it, I just insinuated what it was and then let people picture it, because usually it's worse. But like in chapter 2, I very vividly described it. This is exactly what this corpse looks like. That way people would get grossed out, because the very next scene is Riley, the one who survived the original animal, looking at the same corpse and just being like, oh, this is nothing. This is not bad at all. The original animal was way worse. And then it works in a sense of, if this horrific mangled corpse didn't shock this lady, then what has she seen? So
I giggled at that, by the way. I don't know if I told you that. I might have, but I definitely giggled during that next chapter. I was like, ha.
And yeah, I do try to use gore in a way that when I describe it, I try to make it really descriptive, but I also try to make sure I'm not overusing it. And when I do, it's one thing I'm not just antsy to include. So if I've included it, I try to make sure like I have a justification for why I'm writing it.
I love that. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, that's really good. And yeah, Bad says the same thing here in this comment. Yeah, yeah, just gore for the shock value of it without the story doesn't really work.
Yeah. I think that's why I don't like action movies as much, is because a lot of them are action for action's sake, and there's either very little to no plot. People are like, that's the best movie I've ever seen. I'm like, what did you watch? A bunch of boobs?
I'm pretty lenient on action. I'll watch a movie that's just 2 hours of action. Just like, yeah, that was great.
I'm not that person. I need you to tell me the story. Maybe disembowel a couple people, like, whatever.
Yeah, I'll watch a 2-hour action movie just for the action too. I'm the same.
I don't know how I cannot relate to either of you right now.
The action just has to be well done. Like in the John Wick movies, the action is done well enough that it doesn't. The action itself is.
John Wick is awesome.
It is.
I've never seen it because it's an action movie. I know. I've been told they're really good. I will watch them eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe.
John Wick was one of the main like inspirations for Shade.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool. See, I love Shade.
Yeah.
Shade is amazing. Shade was so good that when I finished it, I was like, so at the time I was living with my mother, and my mom's room is just down away, just like a couple doors away from me. And I finished it and I ran into her room and I was like, turned off her TV. I was like, you have to hear me. I finished this book. And she let me rattle on for like 15 minutes. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll read it. Can you leave me alone now? And she did read it. And she loved it. She's actually read all of your books except for The Animal because I told her she can borrow it, but I have yet to give it to her.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
She likes your books too. She says that they are a little graphic for her taste, but she says the stories are really good.
Yeah, my daughter's planning to read them as well. I haven't let her borrow them yet, but when she's ready to read another book, I'll be letting her borrow some. That is, if she can promise to give it back to me. I may just have to buy her own copies. That's what it'll come down to. So, but she loves horror, so I think she's gonna love your books. We were kind of on the topic, so I was going to bring this up. Bad had a comment earlier, like, how do you feel about extreme horror, writing triggers and things like that?
Oh, trigger warning for his first book.
Oh boy,
all the trigger warnings.
All the triggers.
If you can think of a trigger warning, it's probably in there.
Yeah, Nightmare did have a lot. So did Animal and Shade, to be fair. But
I mean, there's two things in Nightmare I wish I would have known prior to reading it, because when both of those things happened, I was like breathless and in tears. I'm a very emotional reader, y'all. Very emotional reader. And and I was like, how could you not tell me this was gonna happen? So
I think I know what at least one of them was. I'm not sure on the other one.
I will tell you when we're done which one they both are. Yeah.
Okay. As far as extreme horror, I haven't really read much extreme horror, just because for that same reason I don't really go into just books that are like really gory, which again sounds hypocritical because all of mine have gore in it. But so if it's extreme, I usually won't read it. I have probably read a little. As far as trigger warnings, and that's not to say I don't think it's like good. It's just that's just a personal taste. As far as trigger warnings, I usually in mine I try to make the synopsis make it pretty clear what type of book this is. And then if they're all horror, I haven't felt the need to be really specific of, hey, this specific thing happens. Because a lot of the times it's like spoilery, depending. But there's one that I might should have had for Nightmare. Not really a trigger, but more of just like a notation on something that I was kind of using liberally, that I might should have made a note of, hey, this isn't how this actually is. I'm kind of just upping it for the sake of this is a dramatic book, so I'm just making my own rules for it. But
I disagree. I don't think you needed that.
Yeah.
I think it was really good.
I think I used one sentence in the book to have a character just say like, this is like a more progressed case or something. Just some little clarification that, hey, this is not what it would be. But
yeah, I can understand.
Yeah, I can understand that too. But yeah, like Ariel said, though, I do think it was perfect the way it was too. So yeah.
We could be biased though, because we loved it so much.
That's true. Yeah, we might be a little biased. She also asked, when do you get your story ideas and how do you keep them so you won't forget, etc.? Do you have like notebooks, recorders, anything?
I have I do have notebooks. Whenever I get an idea, I write it down in the notes app on my phone. I've got like 30, honestly a lot more than that, just like open folders of just random scattered notes and stuff. Usually if it's an idea that I like, I'll remember most of the important details. I remember there's a quote from Stephen King's book On Writing where he said he never took notes of anything because he felt if he didn't remember it, then it wasn't good enough to be remembered. That's actually a pretty good quote. Personally, I have a lot of very specific, like I'll just straight up write a paragraph of dialogue that I want to use in 3 years whenever I get to stuff. So I keep notes of everything there. I have a few notebooks that I'll keep more specific notes in. As far as when I get ideas, it is just completely random. I can be watching a movie. A lot of it is I'll be watching a movie or reading a book, and I'll be like, and I'll have like look at the story and be like, instead of doing this, they could have done this, and this would have been really cool. And I'll just be like, oh yeah, I can do that, and then I'll just like write notes about different ways I could take it, and then other times I'm just randomly sitting there daydreaming and happen to have an idea that I like.
Well, since we're talking about ideas and we're talking about books, you and I discussed your how you write and the process of how you write. What is your favorite part about your writing process?
I like that.
Probably the like brainstorming and outlining part of it.
Okay.
I really like to write. It's like the actual writing is obviously fun. I hate editing, but the actual writing is really fun. But I think when I'm like, now that I have like a whiteboard, when I have a pretty good idea for the story, but I'm just trying to piece everything together, it's really unique because I can just like have music going, be like, I want this character to do this. This leads into this chapter. I get everything organized, color coordinated, figure out like plot twists. I'm going to foreshadow. The plot twist happens at 25. I'm going to foreshadow it this way in part 1, this way in part 3. This will connect to this. It's just really like making the structure and the outline, and just because it's also the most. There's a little more pressure, I guess, when I'm like writing, because I'm like, this needs to sound good. When I'm outlining, I can do whatever I want. And if I have an idea that sounds good and then I decide I hate it 2 days later, doesn't matter. And it's like just finding the best way to do everything. And I don't know how. I could know how they do it, but for me, I couldn't just sit down and write, because planning everything ahead of time is my favorite part, and it makes the actual writing more enjoyable.
That's good. I'm glad that you have like, it's a very structured way of doing it, but it's also at the beginning you're very loosey goosey. So
Yeah.
that sounds like it would be more fun. Like I wouldn't even know where to start with that. I'd be like, have you ever seen that episode of SpongeBob where he's like writing for like 45 minutes and it's just like the word the? That would be me.
When I was writing Nightmare for the first time, because I'd written stuff, but like I hadn't actually wrote anything beyond just like essays and crap. And it was so hard to like, because you know how a book sounds when you read it, but there's a very big jump from like in my head knowing this character does this to describe he does this. And I used to just sit there for the longest time, and like it got to where I had a habit of I would just write the at the beginning of the chapter, and then just be like, well, what would I say if it follows the? And then I would just write it and then go back up and edit the out. And I still do that sometimes. I'll open up a new Word doc and just immediately type the, just so there's something there.
I love that. I mean, I don't know how Chaz writes, but like he's a writer too. So you guys have that in common. I'm just here reading things. So consumer.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. Yeah, so Chad's more structured than I am, and that's good because it works for him. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I still need to get a copy of Talendor's. Is that how you pronounce it? Talendor's Gist?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I've got a copy on my Amazon. I need to go ahead and order it so it comes in.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I appreciate that.
I have it on my Kindle. I will get to it. I will. I'm reading down my physical TBR at the moment, and I'm so close. And I'm just like, let's get through that before we get through Kindle.
Right. I did want to ask. So, one thing I love about your books is the way you write the way you write the perpetrators is very believable, and makes them very relatable. Like in each of your books, I feel myself being drawn to the perpetrator, not in a creepy way, of course, but just like
it's creepy. Go on.
Yeah, I really feel like I feel like I'm walking in their shoes when I'm reading about them. What's your secret to achieving that? I would love to know, because you do it really well.
You really do, but it's not just like one You like not just perpetrators, not just
Yeah, right.
like anybody who's taking center stage. I feel like I'm living your life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I do feel I've gotten stronger with. Because of it's weird to say without spoiling, because of a twist at the end of Nightmare, I couldn't really go that deep into anyone else's point of view other than Scott. Just it would have made something not work. So it was really just, but even there, I wanted the antagonist of Nightmare, Vincent. I wanted it to be like you weren't really sure which one you wanted to win in the end. So I just treated the villain as like Vincent was actually my favorite character in
I was
Nightmare.
gonna say Vincent was my favorite character, 100%,
And
and
I
the dog.
and it's like even though he
Yeah.
is the villain or the antagonist of the story, like I try to give him just as much motivation and reasoning because I do like villains who are just evil for the sake of being insane. But I like well in Shade there was a balance of
That's why you like the Joker so much.
yes. Uh,
Mhm.
in Shade, there was a balance of the villain of the flashbacks, the surgeon. He was kind of more of a classic, not much motivation. He's just kind of evil, who a villain you just like to hate. But the villain of the present day, who is it's revealed throughout the present day chapters. I was about to just lie and say the wrong character, but I'll just keep it ambiguous. But they kind of have a story that's built up within the flashbacks, and to me, the two primary characters in Shade of like Shade and Jack, they're dueling each other in the sense of like they have similar but conflicting ideologies where like they're both trying to do the right thing and both of them really believe they're doing it. It's just one of them is more ends justify the means. And it's that split that makes it where you could almost agree with the one who's portrayed as the villain because it does make sense. And then with Shade, I incorporated the other main of the three characters, Sarah. I tried to have her backstory with her military background work with all three, where Shade is
It
depressed,
did.
leads
Yeah.
to violent behavior. Jack is depressed, but he just regresses it and deals with it. And Sarah's depressed, and it just leads to depression. And it's they all three have the same trauma, but they have three very different ways of dealing with it. And then at the end, it all comes together, and it's like which way of dealing with it works the best.
It's not the end though, because we're getting a second one, right?
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah, there will be a sequel to Shade. I believe in the I think I wrote it
Yeah,
at
it
the
says at the end.
yeah.
Yeah, it's at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shade will return or something like that.
Yeah.
in A6
Yeah.
something. And I know what's blackened out, but I just didn't write it. But yeah, I'm working on the all I'll say is I'm working on the sequel to Shade. It's
Are you working on anything currently now that will be published next October?
yes, I have a few other projects that I've either working on or they're in various stages of completion. I have a kind of a fantasy horror story that's a little shorter than Nightmare. It started out as an idea that I wrote for a college project. I'm an engineering student, but we did had to take one theater class for some random reason, and the class project was like write a
Technical theater, that's engineering.
yeah. Uh, and there was like write a 10-page like screenplay based on one of the Grimm's fairy tales. I took it way too seriously and I had a really cool idea for it. So I ended up writing a 120-page screenplay. And then I was like, this is pretty good. So I rewrote it as a novel. And it was kind of cool because it was I still outlined, but not near to the degree because like Animal was outlined in my head for like a year and a half and then outlined on a whiteboard for 6 months. This one was more outlining just ahead of as I was writing. So I think it's going to be the one that I release next October. I'm not 100% sure, but right now
I
I'm
will be
thinking it
waiting.
will be.
Thank you.
And what is it?
I said I will be waiting. Thank you.
Oh,
I will be waiting as well. with bated breath and on pins and needles.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always cool to hear. I have that. It's I know what the title is. I don't want to say it yet, but it will be probably the next book that releases. I have two other I'm outlining a different project, but I have two other projects that I've like written drafts of. One of them is it's the most similar to Nightmare of anything I've written since Nightmare. It's kind of like a slow burn horror story centered around one family. And then there's one other project that I won't say too much about, but I am very excited about it.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I'm going to be invested in that, because if you're excited, then I'm excited.
I will say it is another detective story.
Nice. You were very good at the detective story. If you haven't read Shade yet, anybody who's listening, it gives you, like he said, 2 timelines. And if you've seen the Insidious movies, where there's multiple timelines, there's multiple things happening, and they all kind of come together in the end, that's what it was like reading Shade. And it was a fantastic story. You didn't get lost in the back and forth between the timelines, which a lot of books that do that, you can get lost very easily.
Yeah, I definitely like the timelines for Shade, especially with especially the ending, because eventually, like you say, they do start cross-cutting, and that was where using the italics for the flashbacks made it really easy to tell what is present day and what is, because it was funny, my Miblart, who does my formatting, they like italicized the text, and I was like, no, this needs to be like way more slanted. And they were like, why? And I was like, well, because it doesn't look different enough from the normal text. And they were like, why? And I was like, no, it's gonna be in the same like sentence, just all of a sudden flip. They need to be very instantly distinguishable, or else this is gonna be insanely confusing.
Oh, and it's just when I first found that, I was like, ooh, that looks different. And it was super easy to tell what was going on as a reader.
Yeah, it was. It definitely helped. So I'm glad you pushed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the italics worked well.
I think you have a lot of really good creative decisions when it comes to your books. Like not just like the chapter headers, the way things are spaced out. I mean, you got the cover too. You've got like where it's all your books are like negative images of each other, which is insane.
Right.
So
yeah, I definitely like the negative images. When they first sent me the negative image for Nightmare, I was like, man, I almost want that to be the actual cover. Because I was like, the black background looks so nice. I almost changed it, but I was like, no, I need it to be black because it makes more sense for a crow. But
right.
I actually really like that you didn't. And I also really love this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the back of this book is my favorite of all your books. And I guess since we're showing off negative image, we'll show the reverse negative. So Shade is the only one that's reverse, which honestly, either way, like it's still nice either way. I think I like this better, but I think it's because you like the blood just looks better on the white.
I think the blood showed up better on the white.
And the snow shows up better on the white too.
I don't think it's not supposed to be snow.
Well, it's not. I don't call it. I call it snow, but it's on all your books.
Oh, okay. Grit. Yeah, okay.
I call it snow. It's not snow, but it's what I refer to it in my brain. All your books have it. Like this one has it. Like this one has it, but it's only around like the white, like just around through here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fuzz, static. Because when I see it, my head thinks like not actual snow. It's like
snow.
Well, you're a little young, so you may not remember this, but TVs at one point there used to be no picture. The channels would just stop, and then you get.
You just made my old fogey heart proud. I remember snow on my TV.
Yep. That's how I knew, all right, might as well go to bed. There's nothing coming on until 4 a.m. and it's news.
Yeah, pretty much. Have you dabbled in any cosmic horror, Chad?
Not yet. I do have plans to. I have a I feel like my answer for all of everything is like not yet, but I have plans. But
And I love that.
uh,
Yeah,
I
That's
have
that's a good thing to have, though.
it is.
Plans.
Yeah, never say never, right? Yeah, not
yeah,
yet.
I have I have a couple different. I have two like horror novel ideas that are like set in space. One of them is kind of like a creepy, slower psychological breakdown, and then
I
the
love
other one
that.
is like an alien abduction story, and I really like it. I don't know when, because like currently it's like 15 years off. I keep trying to see if I can move it up, but I want to get to it sooner rather than later. But I do really like the concept for it, especially its ending. I like the ending, but
Can I was just saying earlier before we started the live feed that you're an author that I follow, obviously, but I'm not just following you. I'm not just picking up books you've written. I'm following your career as it goes. And I was holding all these books and I was like, I've never been able to hold a book and talk about it and think, wow, I'm really proud of the person who read this. But yeah, I am very proud of you. Your progression in your storytelling, in your writing, and you being able to talk about books. Do you remember the first time we talked about Nightmare and how awkward you felt and how like you just were like
yeah,
but you're so fluent now. You talk with such gusto about your own work and your projects that are coming and things you just did 15 years off, man. Like in 15 years you're gonna be like 33
yeah, no,
maybe. Yeah.
I'll be 38 because I'm 23 now, so that math makes sense.
See, I
Mhm.
don't math, so
Was that? Yeah.
I've never claimed to
15
be a
38.
mathematician. Can't count.
All my college professors are watching me right now thinking he better be able to add 23 and 15. But yeah, it is strange because I do look at like the list of books because I kind of just plan books like one a year, and I don't know
Mhm.
if I'll be able to keep that pace because there have been times where I've written more, but I look at some ideas. I'm just like, if I do this at one a year, I'm going to be writing this when I'm like 50. And I was like, I don't want to wait that long, but at the same time, I don't want to take out any of the books that are before it. So,
Yeah.
Can you work on multiple projects at once and like maybe try to get out 2 a year?
if I did that, I could probably do multiple at once, but I when I'm outlining, I'm trying to outline one thing, and then when I write, I do a chapter to a day on that one project. If I did two a year, I would need to do one entire one and then reset and do the next one.
Oh, okay. That's kind of how I figured it would be, considering you plan everything out so far ahead into the book. Like you don't like you're not a pantser like that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I think you could do it. I think you'd be great.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know once because I've been just writing in the summer once I graduate college because I'm going I got one more year to get my graduate degree. But when I quit, I know it will be different because I'll be working, so I'll have to figure out how to incorporate it in. So I don't know if it will be more or less books a year. But I will say one of the reasons why I can't do many at once, it's hard for me to like because the fairy tale one, for instance, was written in not first person. It was written in present tense because it was originally a screenplay, and I really liked the way the present tense felt, so I went ahead and kept it. And when I wrote the next project, it was like 6 chapters in before I could finally because I wanted to go back to past tense, but I kept accidentally writing stuff in present tense. So it took me time to shake that off. And then like the last story I wrote was in first person, and it was so difficult to go from third person to because you wouldn't think it would be that big of a deal, but for some reason switching from like an outside narrator to someone's own thoughts the whole time made it difficult. So I think if I was doing two at once, because I try to have them all have a very different style, I don't
I
think
was
I
gonna say, I feel like you bounce back and forth. And I feel like if I was to try to do that, I would probably have a hard time too. So I mean, it doesn't sound so unbelievable to be hard. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah, it does.
What do you think?
It is difficult because in what was uh, in my original book before it was Talendor's Guest, two of the stories were first person, and when I changed it over and made it into the novel it is now, I had to convert those over to third person.
That was rough. I
That
guarantee you that was
that
rough.
was one of the hardest things I'd ever had to do.
I can't imagine. Because
Yeah.
like it
So I'm
because when
with
I
you,
was gonna
Chad.
write the first person, I was like, oh, this is just going from calling this character Rachel, like Rachel went to bed. I'll just switch to say I went to bed. Like I thought that was gonna be really the only difference. And it changes so much more, like because it was the thing that if I would have never understood it if I hadn't have tried, because I was like, this is just switching from a name to I. But after I did, I was like, yeah, I can't explain why it was difficult, but the whole thing just felt wrong. And it took me I was probably halfway through the story before it finally started feeling normal to do the first person. I can imagine taking a story that was third and changing it. That had to be a nightmare.
Yeah, it
But
changes
but
cool
not this
paragraph
kind of
structure.
nightmare. It's a different nightmare.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help
Right.
myself. So when you write, I have two questions about writing. One, where do you write? If you write in one place or in multiple places, and two, what do you use to get the words out of your head?
Typically, I've written in other places, but I've pretty much written everything I've written in my house. Typically, I set up a card table in my bedroom, and I'll just set up like a chair, and I'll just put my computer on it, and that gives me enough space because I try to have a notebook of everything I've written before in the story with me. So if I need to go back and reference, so I'll just have like the card table, my laptop, the notebook of the chapters I've written so far, the smaller notebook I write the actual chapter outlines in, and that's pretty much how I write everything. As far as what I just use my laptop. I use a whiteboard to do the whole kind of book outline, and then I have a black notebook that before I write a chapter, right as I'm about to write it, I'll sit down, I'll write pretty much a detailed outline of the chapter of starts in this location, this character says this character does this, just like a brief one page, this is everything I'm about to write. And then after I use the notebook, I then go to the computer and I just type everything out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so detailed.
Yeah, it
You
is.
are more organized than that California Closets place that comes to your house and shows you containers or whatever they do. I'm honestly not sure what they do. But you are the California Closets of writers.
I do it mostly just because it makes the writing easier for myself. Because if I get to a scene I don't know what's coming next, I have trouble writing it because I'm like, well, I could write something that I don't like. So I have trouble obviously I can't outline every single thing I'm going to write in the chapter because the outline's a page, the chapter, can be 30. But I need to at least know the structure because it makes it easier for me to justify. I need the justification for everything I'm writing because I have trouble writing something that I know I could remove from an edit. I'd also do it to save time on editing because I don't want to remove a big chunk of the book because I wrote it and ended up not having a point. I like it to be I have the exact justification of this is in here because of X, Y, and Z, and it needs to be in this chapter because of this. And it's just the crutch that I use to make the writing process.
Don't call it a crutch. That's your process, not a crutch.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's what makes you the fantastic author that you are.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. I've got 3 books in front of me that have progressively gotten better with each time you've sat down to write. Your process is also growing and changing and evolving for what you need in the moment. It's not a crutch. It's definitely just an amazing part of these.
Yeah.
And that is one thing I didn't notice that much, that like I'd gotten, because I knew I'd gotten, or at least I feel I've gotten stronger at writing. For instance, in Nightmare, I used to
Oh
sit
yeah.
down and take like an entire day to write 1,000 words. And I'd really like stress about how do I like even start this chapter? How do I even do this? And then there's one scene in Animal where I ended up deciding to is this, I won't say what it is because spoil, but it's a scene where like it cross cuts, it starts at the end of the chapter and then it starts at the beginning and then it keeps cross cutting forwards. And I just decided to do that the morning that I started writing it. I was originally just going to have it be linear, and I was like, I think it'll work better here. And I just wrote it that way. And after I was done, it made things, I was like, back when I wrote Nightmare, I wouldn't have felt comfortable enough to do this, but I've gotten comfortable enough writing now. I was like, yeah, I can just cross cut this and see how it goes. And then even the outlining, I've gotten, because Nightmare I outlined on sticky notes because I didn't have a whiteboard yet, and it was outline of everything that happened, but very like basic. And then like Shade got more detailed, Animal was more detailed, and then the novels I've written since, I'm noticing even my whiteboard outline is almost becoming what my like notebook outline used to be, and now my notebook outline is getting closer to just being a miniature chapter.
You might just need, instead of like a whiteboard like the one you showed me, you may just need a whiteboard wall.
That would be
Right.
so good.
Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hidden Figures, but there's like they're at NASA and there's this giant wall that's just a chalkboard, and our main character's up there on a ladder and she's just writing away doing math. You need that. But
Yeah,
instead of math, it's
that would
words.
make it so much, especially with the detective novel that I'm more excited about. It was a very involved story, so my whiteboard's like two-sided, but there still wasn't very much room. So I was writing everything super small and like having to erase everything as I went to add new stuff. I was like, I need like 3 more of these.
I mean, I guess we need to figure out how much your whiteboard wall is going to cost, and I will donate. I will send funds.
Yeah, just set
There
up a
you go. That's a good
GoFundMe
idea.
or a Kickstarter.
Yeah, GoFundMe, help Chad outline better.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. What I did want to ask, did you like when it comes to books? I know you said with Nightmare and Shade, you came up with the twist first, and then with the Animal, you had the concept first. Did were there other ways that you approached the Animal differently than the first two books?
In certain ways, yeah. I will say Animal, because Nightmare was 95% of Nightmares from Scott's perspective.
Yeah.
Only 1 or 2 chapters do we get glimpses into Vincent's perspective.
Right.
Shade, I kind of did a trio of main characters with Sarah, Shade, and Jack. But Animal was really the most different thing I noticed was there's just a lot more characters and a lot more plot lines to follow. You have And I tried to make each one written kind of with a different style, like Clyde in the forest looking over stuff. I wrote slightly differently. Then you have the story of Riley, and then you have the kids, and then Oliver, and the bouncing back and forth.
Oliver.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I will say Oliver was probably one of, if not my favorite character to write an Animal. I did really like him, but he was one of those characters that when I'm done with the novel, I'm just like, I'm sad I'm not going to get to write another story with Oliver. But
Oliver takes the cake from the book. Like, he's definitely my favorite character.
Yeah.
I actually, when you're done, I want us to both tell you who our favorite characters in all the books are.
Okay. That'll be interesting. That's the thing. Even it's weird, I guess, for the authors there, but I do have like my own favorite characters in my stories and stuff. Like right now, of the books I've released, it'd probably still be Vincent, just for the sake of Nightmare was my first story, and Vincent was like the first character that was really just.
So Vincent from Nightmare, Fu from Shade.
Oh, I didn't realize you were asking me. From Shade, it would be Shade.
Okay, and then from Annabelle is Oliver.
Uh, it's Oliver as far as characters go. I really enjoyed writing the character of the animal. So like the entire in sequence, there's no because like there's not much if any dialogue attached. It's just actions. But that the in sequence of the animal was my favorite sequence to write. I really enjoyed it. But as far as like characters who like were characters throughout the entire novel, it was definitely Oliver.
Nice.
Riley and Clyde were both pretty close, but Oliver. Every time I'd write Oliver in a chapter, it was just I would just smile because he was just entertaining. I guess.
He was entertaining. I really liked him.
Yeah, he was very much so. Yeah, yeah. If I had to say, definitely Vincent from Nightmare, definitely Shade from Shade, and then uh, for me, Riley was my. Even though I really liked Oliver, Riley was my favorite, and maybe that comes from being a parent. Like just everything that Riley went through, and not wanting her daughter to have to go through the same things. That really got to me. So I
Can we
think that
just talk about Riley as a parent? Like, not only was she trying to teach her kid to be a good person, she was like, let me teach you how to not die, but like in
right,
every possible scenario.
yeah,
Like, she prepped for everything.
yeah,
I loved that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
When I wrote, oh, you can go ahead.
no, go ahead. You're good.
When I wrote Riley, I knew because we've seen a lot of like final girl type characters over the years. Like even in 2018 when they brought Laurie Strode back, she was really prepared and really like ready and stuff. With Riley, I wanted to do that, but with more of a I don't want to say subtler, more of Riley's entire life wasn't devoted to the animal, but at the same time she is like she doesn't make her daughter scared. She doesn't like Emma still has really happy childhood, especially given the circumstances of the father and everything. But at the same time, Riley figures out a way to make it into a game and to make her daughter ready. And Riley also just like Riley never does anything to make Emma scared if she doesn't have to, even if Riley herself is just breaking down terrified. And I thought that was
Yeah.
the good approach to go with her.
Well, like you wrote that like you were a parent, and I know you're not. Like when I read that, my all my motherly instincts were like, this is perfect. And you were over here, 23, well, you were 22 when you wrote this, 20, 21, 22, a kid in college with no children. Do you have experience with children at all?
Not really.
No?
Um,
You're gonna make a wonderful father. Good job.
Right.
You're gonna make a wonderful father.
oh, thank
Yep.
you.
I
Not
definitely.
anytime soon, though. You're too young. Stop.
Yeah, it'll probably be a while. But that is one thing because certain characters you don't have personal experience with, but you just try to like picture them and what you would do in in their scenario. And for some, it's even more difficult because like, especially like for some of the villains and stuff, it's like I can't even put myself in their shoes because I would do something completely different. You have to just be like, if this is this type of character, what makes sense for them to do? And that it makes it a struggle sometimes, but usually I just try to focus on like what makes this character work the best. So like Riley, I focused on that aspect of being a parent. Shade, I tried to balance like military PTSD and stuff, even though, I'm not obviously in the military or anything, but I tried to like find ways of this is how this type of character would deal with this. And
Mhm.
sometimes you feel it works better than other times, but I thought I was happy with how it turned out for Riley and Shade.
Well, with it like in Nightmare with Scott, you also got a really good handle on like a father's love for his children, for his daughter, for their future. So I think you're really good at writing just generally different people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, because even in the case of the sheriff, and I can't think of his name right now in the animal, but even though like he should have come well, okay, spoiler warning everybody. I won't go into deep spoilers, but even though he should have come forward, there was a sense in which he had taken this battered boy from this awful home, from this father who just like destroyed this kid, and tried to protect him, even though he knew he knew what Clyde had done. He tried to protect him as a father would. So even in that sense, like even that kind of misguided parents, it's kind of like we want, if our kids do something bad, we still want to protect them and that kind of thing. So I just think you have a finger on the pulse of parenthood right there.
Yeah. Like I said, you're going to be a great dad. I think for me, as far as like the characters go in the animal, definitely Riley and Oliver. In Shade, Sam and Shade. Sam first though.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Nightmare, it's definitely Vincent and the dog.
Oh yeah, Dakota.
It wasn't that your dog?
Yeah.
What wasn't that based off your dog?
Yeah, I had a dog named Dakota. He's I think in Animal. No, not Animal. In Nightmare, I have it be a German Shepherd. Dakota was actually a mutt. He was a mix of a couple different things. He had some German Shepherd in him, but yeah, I did base it off that. One question: who is Sam in Shade?
What did I say? Did I say Sam?
Yeah, that's okay though. Did you mean Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah, not Sam.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what? You know what it is? You know what it is? I'm reading a crime novel. Well, kind of read. I've got like 5 books going because my ADHD is everywhere and I can't focus. I started reading something on my break today at work, and like the main character reminded me of Sarah, and her name is Sam. That's what it is. I'm sorry. It is definitely Sarah.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was literally going in my head. I was like, did I have a side character named Sam? And I was just going,
no, you didn't. I swear to you, I've read it.
I assumed you meant
Sarah. Review and everything. Oh, that's embarrassing. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Nah, you're fine.
I have more trouble remembering names because like if it's a character who's in like one chapter who doesn't come up again, like some of the kids in the first chapter of Animal, I kind of just picked out their names on the spot because they're not going to make it very long. So like when it's that, I have more trouble remembering the names. So I was genuinely curious of like, did I have a character who I named Sam and I just genuinely don't remember them? And that's why I would have had to ask because I genuinely was like, did I?
No.
Oh no. Yeah, it doesn't matter much. They're not going to live very long.
Yeah. That's when you said that, like everything in me was like, ha ha ha.
I loved it. Yeah, that was great.
Because it's
I feel like when you have like a throwaway character like that, and like even if you didn't name them, you could just call them like a nickname. Like they don't have a nickname. That's just Jay.
Yeah.
That's just Jay over there.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say you had talked about earlier, alluded to the sequel to Shade coming up, and Bad had a question here earlier. Do you feel pressure with sequels, like they have to be better than the first one?
That's actually a really good question. One of the reasons I don't, like I said, I have no plans to write. As much as I want to write the characters of Nightmare again, I just don't know what to do with the sequel. One of the I have like weird rules that I set for myself, and I've broken them often. But one of the things like I don't want to write a sequel unless it doesn't have to be better than the first one, but the sequel has to be able to give something new to it. I don't want to just write a sequel for the sake of, because there are so many like movies and novels where they have a really good story and then they write a second one just for the sake of writing a second one, and it's like it does run the risk of, it's unfortunate because technically it doesn't affect the first one, but sometimes it feels like it does. So
I feel that way.
There is the pressure of I don't want to write a sequel. And I had no plans to write a sequel for Shade. Like when I first had the idea, but specifically with Shade, the reason I'm doing a sequel is when I had the idea for the sequel, I was like, it was an idea that made me to the point to where if I hadn't even have wrote Shade, I would have written this on its own. And I was like, it made it feel to me like instead of it being I wrote Shade and I just want to write a sequel for the sake of it, this idea made me feel like I wrote Shade for the sake of getting to this idea.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
That was the difference of I was like, when I got that feeling, I was like, okay, I'm going to write this because I think it has, and in that sense, I do think the sequel has I personally, I think it has if I do it correctly, will be better than Shade, but I wouldn't have to be. It would need something of like, this is its own story and there was a reason that I wrote this. But yeah, I was excited because it was good to know I wasn't writing the end of like Sarah and Shade. So I am very of the books that I'm like haven't written a draft of yet, but plan to work on. It's definitely the one that I'm the most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for it too because I loved reading. I read Shade in 24 hours. That's how much because I beta read it for him and I read it in 24 hours. He sent it to me at like midnight or something. I started reading it and then I was like, crap, I gotta go to sleep. And then the next day I just finished it. And I was like, this was amazing.
Yeah, I remember you messaged me that you finished it and I was like, I sent that to you like 10 o'clock last night. How?
Well, I can read very quickly when I'm very, very interested, but I want to go back to what you said about writing sequels for sequels' sakes. That is, I'm very much, I prefer standalones. I love a good series. I love a good trilogy. I even love a good duology. Like what's it called? The death and life of Zebulon Finch. That's a duology. Those are fantastic. But Ready Player 2, don't get me wrong, it's an okay book, but it broke my heart because, like you said, it kind of ruins the first one. And like Ready Player 1 is one of those books that if I'm feeling like really depressed, or if I'm in a reading slump and I can't get out of it, I read Ready Player 1 because that helps me get out of it. Or just like, hey, I'm sad, I'm gonna read something that's gonna entertain me, make me very, very happy. Ready Player 2 comes out, I go get it same day, I read it, it's same thing, less than 24 hours. But not because like I really need to know what happened, it's because I was like, let's just get this over with. Because at the beginning I was like, it really wasn't a bad book. Like I really liked the story. And then you get to the end and I'm like stewing for a month going, ugh, why? Like, I don't want to do that with your books, but I don't think I will.
Yeah, I don't think you will either, and I'm kind of the same way. But yeah, I don't think I'll be doing that with his, especially because it sounds like in the case of Shade, Shade is actually going to end up almost being a prequel to what's about to come in the second book. So that's
I'm really excited about that because eventually, if you wanted to, you could market this as a prequel.
Yeah, it honestly probably. The sequel to Shade is much larger in scope. It is which I mean, Shade was already a like incorporated flashbacks and normal timeline, but the sequel to Shade is way bigger. It is a lot more characters, a way more complex plot, a lot more happening. It's going to be significantly longer, so it's a much bigger story.
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it.
Okay.
So Sarah's military background.
Yes.
Is that going to play a heavy role?
In a sense, it will play a role as far as her character goes. It won't be like it's not centered around her time in the military or anything. But we'll get more. Her character arc within the new story is it's still because at the end of Shade, Sarah and Shade are at a good place, but neither one of them are they very much just made it to the end. They didn't perfectly heal or anything. So both of their pasts really do tie into the character. So they're still, even because Shade also has a military background, that aspect of their character will be explored further, especially with for Sarah, it will be more in a sense of her military past is brought up in the present of this is like how she's dealing with it and how she's moving forward. And with
And like
Shade,
handling her trauma and everything that happened toward the end of Shade and things like. See that I want to see her character develop more because we got a lot of Shade. We got a lot of character development from Shade. We got a lot of backstory from Shade, but we didn't get enough from Sarah. So like I'm excited for that because I really, really loved her character. I thought she brought a lot to the story. Because sometimes when people bring in their stories or in books, movies, they bring in another character and it's just like they're just kind of there because they need an extra somebody to bounce it off. And no, she was her own entity. She had her own issues that you delved into. So like it was really, really cool.
yeah, and that was what I liked about Sarah, because she really did, because it could have been like it would have. I felt I could easily fall into the trap of, because all the flashbacks are about Jack and Shade, and the present day is focused on Jack and Shade. I felt I could easily fall into the trap of she's there to be like the new target, and that's kind of all she is. And but all of these chapters are from her perspective. She needs more character than this. So I worked in. That's why I was like, well, I need her to have a backstory. It needs to tie into theirs. So I was like, Jack is repressing everything. Shade is violently having a breakdown. I'll have Sarah be depressed. It sounds bad to say it that way, but I was like, they fit together. And
It's like a trauma triangle.
it really is. And then at the end of Shade, both Sarah and Shade spent all of Shade in an extraordinary circumstance. So Shade in the present day is breaking down. You don't spend a lot of time with him in the present day, and it's kind of just you don't get to see a lot of Shade being how he would normally be. And Sarah also is thrust into this situation regarding Shade and Jack and how their story goes. So it's not much time of just she's not she's has her own character, but she wasn't the active character in the story. She's reacting to what the other characters do. And in the new, I won't say too much, but in the new one, both her and Shade feel more, at least at the beginning, they're a little more in control. And it's this is how they operate when it's not an insane circumstance.
I like that, at least at the beginning. That gives me a lot of hope.
It goes downhill pretty fast.
I love it. I will watch it roll. I don't have any more questions for you about your books or your writing or the animal, but I do have one question that has to do with you and your reading.
Okay.
What is your white whale? What is the book that you've always wanted to read but haven't brought yourself to read yet?
Oh, good question.
That is a good question. It was actually, if you'd asked me 3 months ago, I would have said Lord of the Rings, because I've always wanted to read Lord of the Rings, but it's so long that I never had. But I've been reading the audiobooks of it, because I live an hour and a half away from where I go to college, so I have to drive there and back every day. So I've been listening to the audiobook of it the past probably a couple months, and it is I'll say it took a while to get going. It was a lot of walking through the woods and singing at the beginning. But since probably since the Council of the Elrond chapter, since then it's been very good. As far as a book that I still haven't read, I've always wanted to read the Civil War storyline from Marvel Comics, and I just recently got the comic book set.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm planning on reading it soon. I'm trying to finish Astonishing X-Men first, which is it's very good. I'm reading it right now, and it is way better than I was expecting.
That's good.
Yeah, I love the X-Men. Huge fan.
My white whale is actually one of your favorite books, and it's It.
Ooh, yeah.
I haven't gotten more than 30% into it, and I just get so frustrated because I'm literally hearing point of views from characters that I'm never going to see again. and it was like nothing had happened yet, and I was like, this is the most boring book. And I always tell myself, I'm gonna make it past. I'm gonna make it past.
It
But
really
I
is that
hadn't
book.
yet.
I was so close to quitting because the opening 2 chapters are great.
Oh yeah.
The like scene with Georgie, and then I forget what the other one was, but it was really good. But then after that, it was like I remember nothing had happened, and it was just people talking. I looked down, it was like page 680, and I was like, "What? Like, how has this been this many pages?" It's a book where I wouldn't read it again, but I'm glad to have read it because, like, the end results. By the end, all the characters you spent that much time with, it makes it better because even like non-horror scenes, like I remember there's a scene where was it Eddie? I can't remember which kid. The kid who's like sick the whole time. There's a scene
Yeah,
where
Eddie
like he goes up to
Gathright,
his mother, and it was like just a small scene, but you'd been spending time with him for like 1,000 pages. So I was like, yeah, and it was like it ended up being a great. It had some regrettable parts of it, but it ended up being a pretty. It was a great ending and a really good like story, but I completely understand that first third is slow.
Yeah. Like I want to start maybe where I've got it bookmarked on the shelf. I'm like, maybe I should just start off where I left off. But the last time I tried to do that, I was so confused because I was like, wait, it's been 2 years since I've tried this.
I
Uh,
almost DNF'd it, and then I switched to the audiobook, and I made it through with the audiobook.
oh, I didn't even think about getting the audiobook. That
Yeah, I
maybe that'll be my saving grace.
give it a try. That's a good way to approach it because I would not have finished. I would have dropped it. I would drop. I would have dropped it altogether if I hadn't switched to audio.
I
See,
see what you did there.
I might have
Yeah.
done that with Lord of the Rings because if I'd read it just on paper, because it really was. I loved the opening couple chapters, but then it was just. It felt like a long time of nothing was happening, and I'd seen the movie, so I was like, none of these characters do anything later, so I don't know what we're doing. But I was glad because I was doing the audiobook, so Andy Serkis narrating it made it entertaining enough that I went ahead and was like, no, I want to stick around until Aragorn gets here. And then probably about since then, that's been like, I'm very glad I stayed. But
Yeah.
I feel like fantasies, more than other genres, sometimes have a little bit of like, because at no point did I consider not reading it, but I know like Mistborn had a slowish start and then ended up getting like really quick paced and really incredible, and probably one of the like favorite novels I've read. But like fantasy sometimes takes a little bit to like set up the characters, and I think Stephen King
Yeah,
or like it's fantasy sometimes, and that could be why books like it have more world building at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with world building, but you gotta hurry it up. Some of us fall asleep.
Yeah.
Some of us is me. What about you? What's your white whale?
Mine is the Count of Monte Cristo.
Really?
Yeah, I have not read it yet, and I'm just like I part of me wants to, and yet it's a chunky boy. So I'm just
Okay,
like I just
I
don't
will
know.
read it with you because that's one of those books I've always wanted to read. So we can buddy read that.
Okay, sounds good. We may have to make it like a month, a 3 month spanning
I was gonna
endeavor.
say it's gonna have to take a while, yeah.
Yeah, and it may be one of those that would be good with the audiobook too. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll keep you posted, Ariel.
Yeah.
That would be good because yeah, that's one I've just put off and off and off, and I do want to read it because I know I like the story because I've seen I saw the movie with uh oh yeah, what's his name
A
I can't
man.
put that.
A man. I don't know.
Yeah, a man. I only know that Guy Pearce was his friend in the movie, but I can't remember the other actor's name. But anyway, I love the movie. So I know I love the story. One of my favorite animes is based on the Count of Monte Cristo. So I want to read the story. I just haven't yet.
I know I read the Great Illustrated Classics version of it when I was in elementary school. I loved the Great Illustrated Classics. I still do, honestly. I don't think I've ever read the actual novel. I remember loving the Great Illustrated Classics.
Okay. Nice.
Well, maybe we'll have to make it a summer read, and you can read with us.
Maybe.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, just triple team it.
So, any movie or TV deals in the works?
Not yet. I do.
Not
That is the ultimate goal. I would really like.
This would make a fantastic movie. This would make a fantastic movie. This would make people like scream and cry if it was a movie, and I would love it all.
Oh
I would
yeah,
love it all.
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to see any of them as movies, especially I do really think Animal with the slasher aspect. There are like certain visuals that are just in my head of how it could be done, especially for like again that ending sequence. I have like in my head I've planned out like where I would put the camera, how I would have things move, and it's like I think it could be really cool if that ever happened.
Honestly, I feel like if the Animal was made into a film, there are certain, I mean, obviously because they couldn't make it as long, there'd be certain things they have to cut out. But as long as they didn't cut it out to the point where it's just bare bones story, like some movies they do that with. I think it could become one of those like Halloween classics that when you go to your TV, your smart TV, and you pick like the Halloween section, it would be there.
Do you have a director that you would like to get hands on your book?
Quentin Tarantino. No.
That would be interesting. I hadn't watched Tarantino until just a year or two ago, but I've really liked the stuff of his that I've seen, especially Django. Django's really good. I don't know as far as directors. I'd like to have a shot at directing some stuff, but I know I'd really like to see.
Okay, so you'd be a great director because you wrote it.
Yeah.
Right.
I know one director that I really like is obviously James Wan is really good in horror, and so is Leigh Whannell. I don't know how to say his name. I apologize, but what's his? I always forget his actual name. His YouTube channel's Pony Smasher. He's the one who directed Lights Out.
Oh yes, I don't know his name either.
And I know his name. It's just every time I'm about to say it, I go Pony Smasher, then I completely forget what it actually. It's David something, right?
I'm not familiar.
I was gonna say I follow him. I know this. I just can't think of it right now.
David F. Sandberg. That's it.
There we go.
I always go David and then think David Harbour and then get confused. But yeah, David F. Sandberg. I think he's one of the newer. I think he's a horror director that people don't talk about enough as they should. Because like of all three Annabelle movies, his is by far the best. And it was the second Annabelle movie and a prequel. And yet I think it is way, not to say the first wasn't good, but like Annabelle Creation is by far the best of those three movies.
I agree with you there 100%.
I'd put Annabelle Creation as the third best movie in The Conjuring overall. I would do Conjuring 1 and 2 and then Annabelle Creation.
What's your favorite horror movie?
If Jaws counts as a horror movie, it's Jaws. If it doesn't, then it's probably Halloween, the original 1978 one. I also really like 2018 Halloween, and then like I really like Scream. I really like Aliens, and then I think John Carpenter is probably my favorite horror director, because like to go from Animal, the fact that I'm not Animal, to do Halloween and The Thing within the span of a couple of years is just insane. Like those are two of the best horror movies, and that's The Thing is another case where I don't really like gore, but in that movie they really made it effective.
It's a really good movie.
But
what about you, Chaz?
I'm fairly new to horror as far as watching the movies, but I've seen quite a few that I really enjoy. The Others is one of my favorites. The Other Side of the Door. And I'm a huge fanboy from Mike Flanagan. Like everything he does is just gold.
Okay.
So
you directed Dr. Sleep, right?
I have not seen Dr. Sleep. I actually haven't seen The Shining either. I've never seen either of those, but I do want to see them. And
have you read The Shining?
Because that's Flanagan, huh?
Have you read The Shining?
Nope, not yet. It's on my list though. It will have. Yeah, Ariel
I've
has
seen the
now
movie, but I haven't
unfriended
read
me.
it.
Ariel
Okay.
does not like me anymore.
First of all, you must read The Shining before you see the movie, because I saw the
Yeah.
movie when I was 8. And it scared the bejeebus out of me because I was 8 and I should not have been watching it. I was actually behind the couch, like leaning over, and I was supposed to be asleep in my room, but I was watching it because I think my sister was watching it with her friends. Whereas there's a 6.5 year difference. So like I was creeping and they were annoyed. But I forgot really about the movie much until I got to the book, and then I read the book. I'm like, well, this is different, and this is different, and this is different, this is better. And then I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, this movie's trash. How did this ever scare me? Ever, ever. Please read it. Thank you.
Oh, I will. Yeah, it's definitely on. In fact, I'll probably read it next year. So yeah, it's on my list to read. Um, I still need to watch some version of Salem's Lot because that's my favorite Stephen King book so far. But yeah, so I've got a few that I really like. My daughter's favorite is Trick or Treat. So
Trick or Treat is good.
yeah, she loves Sam. That's one of her he's one of her favorite characters. So.
My friend has a Trick or Treat tattoo right here, and it's the cutest thing. And
That's awesome.
if I'm ever with her, people are like, "Oh my god, that's so cute! Was that an idea?" She's like, "It was somebody's idea."
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I don't have a favorite horror director because I'm really bad with people's names. But like my favorite horror movies, The Ritual. On, if you guys have seen that, that's on Netflix. That one, like I don't get scared when I watch movies often, but that one fucked my brain into like a mush pudding of just I can't sleep. I did not sleep for weeks. Like I slept for maybe 2 to 3 hours at a time for
Yeah.
weeks because it tore me up. And then the movie Us.
Ooh, Us is pretty
Okay.
good.
Us has, I don't know if other people have fears that there's just another version of you somewhere, but that is a fear I've had my whole life, and watching that movie just made that fear so much greater. So much greater.
Yeah. One that really messed me up was The Ring. Like I haven't seen the
God, The
original
Ring.
from Japan, but like the first American Ring movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh goodness, that was.
What was that other movie? It was also like a remake from Japan. Sarah Michelle Gellar was the main character.
The Grudge.
Yeah. I really
Okay, I haven't seen that.
I really liked that movie when it came out. I'm just like, Buffy's in a scary movie. Let's watch it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I just watched
I
Grudge.
should check that out. Trying to think. There was one that I was going to mention. Oh, and I know it's not technically horror. Well, I mean, it kind of is. It's more psychological than anything. But Get Out, like that was my first experience with Jordan Peele, and I have a feeling after watching that movie, I'm going to want to see everything that Jordan Peele does as well because
he did Us as well.
Yeah,
he did Us, but then the other one that just came out not long ago.
Was it Nope?
What?
Nope.
Yeah, Nope. So I saw that in theaters with my friend, and we left that theater going, "What did I just watch?" And the ending was like, it was satisfying, but not satisfying enough. So I've made up thoughts about how the movie should have ended. I have headcanon.
I had the opposite where I really like Get Out, but as far as Us and Nope, I liked them both, but when I was watching Us, there were certain things that just didn't explain that was just driving me insane. So I was just making like that. But Nope, I actually was like, for some reason, just like vibed with. I thought Nope was, I'd say Get Out's his best. I would say Nope is second. I did really like Us, but
see, I don't know what's scarier, aliens that are coming here and they're going to get out of their ship and be like, "Hi," or an alien that literally is a ship that eats you.
Yeah.
And like, the parts in the scenes where like you're watching the people and being digested, basically. Oh my god, no. That's why the movie's named Nope.
So speaking of alien ships, Event Horizon. That
Yeah,
movie, that movie fucked me up.
yeah.
I
I've
was
never
like,
seen that.
I mean, the scene where all of a sudden they're standing in, I don't remember if it's the cockpit of the ship or whatever, but they're standing there like, and they've just appeared out of nowhere, start naked, and their eyes are completely gouged out, and they're just like, I'm like, what the hell did I just watch?
Man,
Just
there's
crazy
episodes
shit.
of Doctor Who that remind me of that movie.
Hmm.
There's one specific episode of Doctor Who where they're like, I think they're on like a base somewhere, and there's ghosts.
Yes.
But yeah, that's with Peter Capaldi's Doctor. Do you watch Doctor Who?
Oh yeah. Oh
Chad?
yeah.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to do that because, like, if you
I heard
like
it's
all
really
these things
good.
that we're talking about, you would love Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a mix between something that's very dark and terrifying and something that's very whimsical, and sometimes you get both in the same episode, and you're like, that shouldn't work, but it does.
Right.
I watch clips of it all the time on YouTube, and I've liked every clip that I've seen. I think it's
Well,
just
there you
it's such
go.
a long series that I've always just
You don't really have to start with one episode, like, or one doctor.
yeah.
Like, I always say start with, like, if you have a more of like a fun personality, but like you want somebody that's gonna come in and get shit done, but in a fun way, start with Matt Smith's Doctor. If you want to get somebody that's like edgy but kind of sweet, you could do David Tennant's Doctor, or you could do Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Or if you just want an old cranky man that is going to make you think about things, you want Peter Capaldi's Doctor. And if you want terrible CGI but a flashing smile, you want Christopher Eccleston's Doctor.
Yeah. He can be a bit cranky and old at times as well. You know.
Yeah, but his is not as convincing because he's so young.
Yeah. The I think you may have been talking about a different episode, but that with the ghost Ariel, but the one I was thinking of that like really tripped me out was the space station where River showed up, and like Donna Noble has been saved. The whole like
Oh, that's Silence in the Library.
yeah.
Silence. Oh, okay. If you're ever gonna watch an episode of Doctor Who, do yourself a favor. I think it's season 3, or is it season 4? Season 3 or 4. It's called Silence in the Library. That is one of the best episodes of Doctor Who to ever happen. I'm just gonna make you a list. I'll send it to you later.
Sounds
Right.
good.
Yeah. But
that one's a good start.
Really wild episodes.
That episode is the first time you see the character River Song, but it's also the time she dies. It's amazing. It's amazing.
No spoilers,
They tell you that in the trailer. It's not my fault.
I know. Yeah.
Spoiler alert! They spoil it for you in the trailer when the episode originally came out. I just want to throw that out there.
Right. Yeah, well, stuff like that is nothing new. Stephen King spoils his own books all the time, so
Yeah.
My favorite Stephen King novel, if besides The Shining, is 11/22/63. That is the best book from Stephen King I've ever read. Ever.
That's another one of my white whales.
Yep.
Yeah.
Y'all, it's worth it. It's so worth it.
I think part of it for me is I know I'm a bad American, but I hate American history with a passion. I am so bored with it. I'm just like,
it's not really American history though. It's way. I mean, yeah. It's 11/22/63. You know, the premise of the story is him going back to stop the assassination of JFK. Yeah. But like, it's so much more than that. It's paranormal. It's time travel. It's a man sort of finding himself. Characters come in and they come out, and it's just like It's an amazing story. There's even like a little. There's I don't. Well, no, can't tell you that. But it's read it.
Eventually I will. That'll probably be another audiobook. Yeah.
I actually read / listened to it because I wanted to listen to it, and at the time I had a longer drive to work, so I did listen to it. The narrator of the audiobook was phenomenal. He did a fantastic job.
Nice. Well, we're getting to almost the 2-hour mark.
Oh wow, sorry.
So so I think if it's okay with you guys, we'll start wrapping it up. But is there anything that you really feel compelled to share with our listeners, Chad, whether it's about your books or things that they should know when getting your books? Ariel, you can feel free to chime in with stuff too, and if I have something, I'll think of it. But I want to kind of leave this open as a final marketing push for Chad on the video.
I'll just say if you like more like psychological, supernatural horror and you like crows, then I would definitely go with Nightmare. If you like more of like crime thriller, like Seven mixed with my favorite review for Shade says it's like compared Shade to Seven, and Seven's my favorite detective movie ever, so that was really cool. But if you like that mixed with like action, like Punisher or John Wick, Shade is the novel you might want to start with. And if you're looking for just a straight up slasher novel that's very straightforward about what it is, but tries to be more like epic in scope, then you'll probably want to start with The Animal.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I think that was a really good way to put that. As far as trigger warnings go, teenagers, they're annoying. Some of them die. Trigger warnings for this is just like be prepared. Just be prepared for so much death and destruction, but you're gonna have a smile on your face the whole time. And then trigger warning, he's not afraid to kill anything or anyone. Okay. That's all.
There was the one. There's the one character in Nightmare, and it's got to be the one you're talking about. Was the one that I was like, "Is this crossing a line?" And then I was like, "I mean, I kind of have to though for what I'm doing." So I was just
you did. If it's the same character that I'm talking about, I read that bit at work. I was at work and I was sitting in the back, and I had a fork in my hand eating something, and I went, oh, "No!" It was a good time.
Assuming it involved the backyard and a shovel.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
That one.
I called my friend who
I want to do this one a little off screen.
I called my friend while I was reading it because I had just told her to buy it. And her and 2 other people from a book club she was in was like, "Yeah, we're gonna buy it." And I called her and I was like, "I have trigger warnings. I found a part." And she's like, "I don't want you to ruin the story for me, but like, can you give me an idea?" And I was like, "He's not afraid to kill anyone or anything, anywhere, anytime." And she was like, "That's vague." Okay. But when she got to the point, I just got a text message with the face with like just the 2 eyes and the mouth. It's just a line. And I was like, "You get there?" She's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Are you upset?" She's like, "I'm not crying. You're crying." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've been there."
Yeah, that was probably the only one that I was like legitimately like, should I do this? And then I was like, I didn't really, for the twist and everything that I was doing.
You should have. It was great. You did a great job.
So I did the way that I did it. I was like, I don't want to describe this one as much. So I'm just gonna I was like, what's a way I can do it without having to?
I think it was better that you didn't. I think it made it more terrible and heart-wrenching doing it that way, honestly.
That's what I was going for.
Well, as far as my final thoughts, I'm just going to say one thing. if you have not read any of Chad's books, you can't call yourself a horror reader. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just, you know, you just
I
can't.
agree with that. I agree with that. And not just like a regular horror reader who's just like, I only read haunted house books. You got to get a wide variety of
Yeah.
horror to read.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the good thing with Chad's books. There's a wide variety in his books for you to explore and experiment with. So,
It,
yeah.
except he always has some sort of, even if it's a minor, it's a psychological thing. He's always got psychological things going
Oh
on.
yeah.
Like
Absolutely. Yeah, that
Nightmare's
is
definitely like the highest level of that. I
Mhm.
would say that Shade could be maybe in the middle, but like certain parts of the animal too, you're like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
especially with, oh, that I can't say it because it's like there's one specific character, and I know you know who I'm talking about, that the entire time I'm reading about this character, I'm like, wow, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry that we planned this a long time ago and then we jumped on like picking dates more recently. So I'm sorry that next time it'll be more planned out. I promise my work schedule will be better.
Yeah, and same here. Yeah, I'm glad it came at least it came in your release month, but yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
The timing actually worked out pretty great, especially for me too, because college has been crazy this semester. So this was a very good time to do it.
Well, good. I'm glad us procrastinating because of our schedules helped you.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad it worked. It seemed to work out perfectly time-wise this way, so that's good. I did want to put this up here. Lady Jane said she had to run earlier, but she's going to catch it on the playback. So,
Oh,
uh,
yay. Thank you for
yeah,
coming, Lady Jane.
yeah, yeah. You've got a lot of fans, and I hope many more because of this video. And yeah, yeah. I can't wait for other people to read your book and experience um, the enjoyment that we've experienced. So, yeah, thank you
Yes.
so much for coming on, Chad. Really appreciate you taking the time with us, and hope to chat again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I always love these interviews. So yeah, I'll definitely come back.
And
Cool.
thank you for writing these amazing books.
Oh
I
yes,
know
thank you.
I I know that you put your heart and soul into them, and we can really see that as readers.
Thank you.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one, and make sure to check out Ariel's channel. Check out Chad's books. Like and subscribe here if you have not already, and make sure you read more books. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.